Isaac Vance lived on a quiet moon called Ridgepoint 6. It was a small farming colony far from the busy trade routes. Most of the people had moved away years ago. Only a few families stayed, trying to grow crops in the red soil. Isaac stayed because he liked the quiet. He liked waking up early, feeling the cool wind, hearing only the windmills turning slowly under the pale sky. He liked work that had a clear purpose. The wheat hybrids he grew were tall, golden, and soft, and he took pride in every patch of land he improved. He was not unhappy, but there was an emptiness that sometimes sat beside him in the evenings. When he ate dinner at his kitchen table, there was no one to talk to. When he looked out at the two suns setting, there was no one beside him to share the view. He had grown used to silence, but silence could feel heavy. One late afternoon, while Isaac was repairing a water pump near the far edge of his land, something unusual appeared in the sky. It was a streak of red light, fast and sudden, crossing above the canyon ridge. At first he thought it might be a meteor, but the light slowed as it fell. That meant it was a landing craft, not a natural object. Ridgepoint 6 hardly ever got visitors. Trade ships passed by the system without stopping. No one would land here by accident. Isaac wiped the dust from his hands, grabbed his old scanning device, and walked toward the ridge. The signal from the device confirmed there was something metallic and powered ahead. He followed a narrow path through tall stone formations shaped by years of wind. The sky was turning orange and violet as the suns drew lower. When he reached the top of the ridge, he saw a small silver landing pod resting at the base of the canyon. Smoke rose gently from its sides and sparks flickered where wires had been damaged. The pod looked old, older than any model he had seen on the colony. Isaac climbed down carefully, keeping his steps quiet. He did not know if someone was hurt, scared, confused, or maybe dangerous. When he reached the pod, he saw the door was already open. There was movement inside, slow and steady. A person stepped out. It was a woman. She moved with calm balance, as if she was not afraid of the unfamiliar land around her. She looked at Isaac without fear, without alarm, only with quiet observation. Her dark hair was braided neatly. Her shoulders were strong, and her eyes held a deep, steady warmth. She stood like someone who had learned to be her own anchor no matter where she was. "I am not here to harm you," Isaac said, raising his hands gently to show he carried no weapon. "I know," the woman said. Her voice was soft but clear. She spoke English, but her accent was shaped by something far older and deeper. "My name is Nayali," Isaac introduced himself slowly. Nayali explained that her people had left Earth many generations ago. They were part of the Apache Nation, travelers who chose to carry their traditions beyond Earth when early star voyages first became possible. They had traveled through many star systems, living, adapting, surviving. Over time, they became fewer and fewer. Some were lost to storms in space, some to broken ships, some to distance. Nayali had escaped the collapse of her last colony ship. It had been old, tired from many years of travel. When tragedy came, there was no way to save everyone. She launched in a small pod, hoping to find any habitable world. The pod had drifted for a long time, life systems slowly fading. When Isaac heard this, he felt something shift inside him. He had thought he knew loneliness, yet Nayali had watched a world disappear behind her. Her silence was not empty. It was full of memories. "Are you injured?" Isaac asked. "No," she answered, "but my pod cannot fly again. I need to repair what I can so it can serve as shelter. I will not be a burden." "You're not a burden," Isaac said, surprised by how quickly he meant it. "You don't have to do everything alone." She watched him for a moment, as if measuring his truth. Then she nodded. They worked together to move the pod to safer ground closer to Isaac's farm. The journey took hours. They used a transport sled and ropes. Isaac pulled and lifted with steady strength. Nayali guided, adjusted, and calculated the best angles to prevent the pod from tipping. She spoke only when needed, and Isaac found that he liked the quiet they shared. It was not heavy like before. It was calm. When they reached his home, he gave her a place to rest and warm water to wash. He cooked a simple meal, grain bread, seasoned beans, and roasted roots. Nayali thanked him with a small bow of her head. As the evenings passed into days, they spent more time together. He showed her the irrigation patterns and the soil treatment mixes he used. She taught him how to read weather by the shape of clouds and how to store heat stones for cold nights. She could move silently across the land, noticing small things Isaac had never paid attention to: the direction of bird flight, the freshness of animal tracks, the change in wind smell before rain. Isaac realized she did not simply survive places. She understood them. Ridgepoint 6 was becoming familiar to her, and in her presence the land felt warmer, more alive. Sometimes, Isaac would catch her standing outside at dawn, holding her hand to the sky as if greeting the morning. When he asked what she was doing, she said, "I remember my people when I greet the day. I speak to them in my heart. Even if I am the only one left, my memory holds them." Isaac felt something tighten in his chest. Her loneliness had depth, but it was filled with honor, not despair. She did not fear being the last of her people. She chose to carry them forward. One morning after weeks of shared work, Isaac and Nayali sat beside the wheat fields watching the breeze roll across the tall golden stalks. The suns were warm but not harsh, and the sky was a gentle shade of rose blue. "Do you miss your old home?" Isaac asked quietly. Nayali took her time before answering. "Home is not only a place," she said. "Home is what you build with your hands, your memory, your respect, and your promises. I lost the place where I was born. I lost the ship that held my community, but I did not lose my home. I carry it. I keep it alive through every choice I make." Isaac realized something then. He had lived on Ridgepoint 6 for years, but he had never truly chosen it. He had stayed because he had nowhere else to go, not because it had meaning to him. But now the land felt different. Shared work, shared time, shared silence. It had all begun to turn the colony into something more than isolated fields. Nayali did not fill his empty spaces. She simply reminded him he was never meant to let them stay empty. In return, Isaac gave Nayali something she had not felt in a long time, a place where she did not have to defend her story or prove her identity. He asked questions when she offered memories, but he never pushed her to speak before she was ready. He listened. The days blended into a natural rhythm. Morning, tending crops. Afternoon, repairing machinery or improving water channels. Evening, sharing meals and quiet conversation. Night, watching stars that seemed closer than ever before. There were no grand declarations, no sudden changes, only the slow and steady forming of trust. It grew like plants, rooting quietly beneath the surface. Isaac had once believed that life on Ridgepoint 6 would always be still and silent. But now, the silence felt warm, like air before rain. Nayali, once a traveler among distant stars, had found a place to stand without drifting. Neither of them had expected companionship. Neither had asked for it. But there it was, gentle and steady, taking shape like a sunrise. The loneliness that once followed them now simply sat beside them, softened, as if it too finally had somewhere to rest. The months passed and Ridgepoint 6 had begun to change. The once barren red fields now swayed with tall golden wheat, dotted with small patches of green vegetables. Isaac had learned a lot from Nayali, and she had learned from him. They worked together with a rhythm that made the land respond to their care. But life on the moon, no matter how peaceful, could not stay quiet forever. One morning, as the twin suns rose slowly over the horizon, a small drone appeared in the sky. It scanned the farm from above, whirring softly. Isaac noticed it first. He frowned and ran a hand through his hair. "Trade drone," he muttered, "but it shouldn't be here. No one stops at Ridgepoint 6 for months." Nayali stepped beside him, her eyes sharp and alert. "It is observing," she said. "Not friendly, but not yet aggressive." Isaac shook his head. "Maybe they've discovered the farm. Maybe Ridgepoint 6 is more valuable than we thought." Nayali studied the drone, noting its design and its markings. "It is corporate," she said finally. "They want the land. They want it for themselves." Isaac felt a chill. Corporations in human space often had more power than any small colony could handle. They brought machines, soldiers, rules, and technology designed to overwhelm. Ridgepoint 6 was a tiny moon, and the settlers had no real defenses. But Nayali did not show fear. She simply looked toward the horizon and folded her arms. "We can defend it," she said. "Not with weapons, not with fire, but with our minds, our strategy, and our unity. That is how my people survived in the stars." Isaac looked at her, surprised. "You mean, fight them?" She shook her head. "Not fight, not yet. Show them we will not be moved. Show them we are not helpless. That is the first step. The second step is preparation." Over the next days, the settlers, led by Isaac and guided by Nayali, began to prepare. It was not a preparation of weapons or warships, they had none, but of intelligence, awareness, and use of the land itself. They cleared paths and built hidden shelters. They reinforced water channels and created early warning systems using old sensors. They studied the terrain, learning every ridge, every canyon, every wind pattern. Nayali trained them with patience. Humans are not only strong with their bodies, she told them. We are strong with our minds, with our choices, with our ability to act together. Learn the land. Learn the sky. Learn each other. That is power. Isaac watched her teach and realized how extraordinary she was. Her voice was calm but firm, and even the older settlers listened without question. She moved among them, correcting small mistakes, offering gentle advice, and always encouraging. She was not a commander seeking glory. She was a guide, and the settlers felt it. By the time the corporate fleet approached, the settlers were ready in ways the intruders did not expect. When the first landers touched down in the canyon, expecting to find an empty farm, they were met with small, coordinated obstacles. Sensors triggered alarms. Camouflage ditches slowed their progress, and automated decoys sent them in circles. The corporate officers were confused. "Where is the settlement?" one asked over the comm link. The report said, "It should be here." A smile crossed Nayali's face as she stood beside Isaac on the ridge, watching the intruders struggle. "They think the land is empty," she said. "They will learn it is not." Isaac felt a rush of pride and relief. For the first time, he realized that his lonely life had been preparing him for this moment. Every repair, every day spent learning the land, every quiet morning had built resilience, not only in him but in everyone on Ridgepoint 6. The settlers worked silently but effectively. They used smoke screens to hide key areas, cut off unnecessary power to confuse drones, and led the corporate units into terrain they did not know. Even without guns, they controlled the battlefield. The invaders were frustrated and slowed. They were not cruel. They were only unprepared. From their vantage point, Nayali gave clear instructions. "Move left along the canyon wall. Wait for the sun to rise behind you. Do not let them see your movement. Keep communication silent. Use the environment as your shield." Isaac felt a sense of unity like he had never known before. The settlers moved together, thinking as one, acting as one, protecting their home. Each person's small contribution mattered. They were not soldiers. They were farmers, engineers, and builders. But that was enough. By midday, the corporate landers had begun to retreat. The settlers had managed to force the officers to reconsider, showing them that taking Ridgepoint 6 would cost far more than the land was worth. No one was hurt. No violence occurred. The victory was not measured in blood, but in careful planning and coordination, in the courage to stand firm against a much larger force. As the intruders left, the settlers cheered quietly. Isaac and Nayali stood together on the ridge, watching the last ship disappear into the sky. Isaac felt his chest swell with pride, not in himself but in the people who had grown strong, who had protected their home. Nayali smiled. "This is how humanity survives," she said softly. "Not through fear, but through strength, intelligence, and care for each other." Isaac nodded. "I never thought I could be part of something like this," he said. "I thought life would just pass quietly here." "It does not have to be quiet," Nayali said. "Quiet is not the same as empty. You have made this place alive. You have made it home." After that, life on Ridgepoint 6 returned to a new kind of normal. The fields continued to grow, stronger than ever. Water systems improved and small greenhouses expanded. The settlers were no longer just isolated farmers. They were a community, aware of their own potential, capable of protecting what they had built. Isaac and Nayali continued their partnership. She taught him more about the traditions of her people, the way they observed stars to navigate, the way they celebrated milestones, the way they remembered ancestors in daily life. Isaac shared his knowledge of agriculture and engineering. Together they became a team that respected each other's experience and valued each other's guidance. Evenings became special. After a day of work, they would sit by the ridge watching the sun set together. The wind would blow through the wheat, carrying a soft, calming sound. They would speak of dreams for the future, not just for themselves, but for the settlers who now called Ridgepoint 6 home. Isaac realized something important. Life did not have to be lonely, even in the most remote places. Loneliness could be transformed into connection, into growth, into purpose. Nayali had reminded him that the past was not a cage, and that the future could be shaped through courage and care. One night, as the twin moons rose, Isaac and Nayali looked at the stars. She pointed to a small cluster far away. "That is where my people once traveled," she said. "I carry them in memory. They are not gone, not truly. They are in every choice I make, in every life I touch." Isaac nodded, understanding. "And now they are in Ridge Point 6 too," he said quietly. Nayali smiled. "Yes, and humanity will carry on. We always do." In that moment, Isaac felt the fullness of life he had never known before. Ridge Point 6 was more than soil and water and crops. It was hope. It was resilience. It was the proof that even in isolation, even in the quietest corners of the galaxy, humans could rise together, protect what mattered, and grow stronger. The settlers continued to thrive. Visitors would occasionally arrive, curious about the moon's unusual crops, and they would find a community that had learned the true value of strength, unity, and respect. Stories of Isaac and Nayali spread quietly through the colony network. Not tales of violence, but tales of courage, of minds and hearts working together, of humans refusing to be defeated by distance or challenge. Ridge Point 6 remained free. The farm flourished. Isaac was no longer lonely. And Nayali, once the last of her people, had discovered a home where her knowledge, her courage, and her spirit could live on, not as a memory, but as part of the future. Together they looked to the stars, not with fear but with anticipation, knowing that whatever challenges came, humanity, clever, brave, and persistent, would endure. And on that quiet red moon under twin suns and rising moons, they were proof of it.